All right, so you guys can hear everything. I can hear everything. That is good stuff right there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the groove quantize in Cakewalk, and we're going to do some things. Shale had asked me about splitting drums and things into different tracks, and we're going to talk about a little bit of that, and we might get to do a little compression. Today's going to be kind of a short and specific sort of a stream. So without further ado, let's get right into this and do some drums. So I've already loaded up MT Power Drum. I've already loaded up a bass channel as well, so we can maybe do some bass. That's low. That's more like it. Okay, so up here, what we want to do is go to, I want to do step record, and I'm going to set to give me eighth notes, and then I'm going to view the piano roll, and I'm on the drum kit. Okay, we're at that octave. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring this here, record, enable that, and I do need to make this, I guess, a little smaller so I can hit the record button. When you enable step recording, I love how that artifacting happens. When you enable step recording, what's going to happen is you get the step record dialog when you hit the record button. That gives you some different things we can do. We're going to first, let's just lay down some hi-hats. And you're going to see here that I'm not going to care at all about anything other than just getting the data in. We aren't concerned about velocities at all right now. And I've set it to eighth notes, so it doesn't matter how fast or slow I hit it, it's going to give me eighth notes. So I'm just going to go like this. There we go. Now we got 4 bars of eighth notes happening. Let's pull this up here. Now let's do 16ths, and let's do something kind of stupid and busy here. So we're gonna we need to bring our line. See, we're over here at measure 6. We need to bring that back, and let's do a lot of kick and snare interplay. And then we're going to, what is it in Cakewalk? It's been a minute. Enter. So we hit enter, and that's going to let us go forwards. So that do da da do da da do da do da do do da, yeah. Now let's try. Let's just do straight paradiddles. We'll do left. I'm going to do it backwards. If we go back, if we use the left arrow, no. Is it backspace? No. What goes back? It is number pad 0. Sure, that makes sense, I guess. And it doesn't step backwards by the same amount, apparently. Okay, now that groove is going to sound like the drummer is just kind of an idiot, because it's going to be super loud, just hitting everything. Okay, and it should, yeah. Oh, right click doesn't do that in here. What? Smart tool, you're being less than smart, Mr. Smart Tool. There we go. Right click and drag. Still getting used to Cakewalk. Still more used to Cubase. Okay, so we've got that. I would like to put in, let's crash this one. Let's move that to crash. Let's move this one as well to crash. Well, we'll go China. Okay. Now let's take this whole thing here. We'll just copy that. And we're going to paste it right here at 6. So we get another 4 bars. And notice that's fallen right into place. Let's take some of these and move them to toms. So we get this. Let's move you over. Okay, I got to change my grid. Grid 16ths. Let's move you up to the high tom and shorten you. I try when I'm doing toms and stuff, when I'm arranging my kit, I like to have one mounter and one floor tom, and that's all I really ever work with. Let's see here. If I open up the synth, let's see what drums it's hitting. We're not going to use the grooves today. We're going to look at the drum kit. Okay, so let's look at the mixer. Okay, so that's my... Let's go to the high tom. How high do I need to drag these to get that high tom? There we go, right there. Okay, mixer. And I want to pan those a little more. Let me get my tom high. Let's pan you a little farther. Tom low, we'll pan you a little farther out. Let's get a little more separation on those guys. Oh, that's nice. Hopefully that sounds just as good to you. Make sure here of something real quick that we're not down mixing to mono or anything dumb like that. So that has happened before. It's audio properties. And nothing is down mixed to mono. Good. So that means if I do this, you guys are going to see me go, no? No, that's interesting. Well, that still goes mono. All right. That's fine. Let's get back over here. Okay, so we've got these drums. I pull this up a little bit, and we're just going to zoom out. I don't understand what's happening. Oh, okay. Window zoom. Okay, so now we have some stuff in here. We have kicks, snares, cymbals, and a couple of tom hits. Not a whole lot of anything fancy. But notice I wasn't super careful about putting my velocities in. I just played all of the notes to get the data in there. Now, you saw that went pretty quick. If I wasn't sitting here jabbering over it, it would have taken me about 10 seconds to get to this stage. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just completely destroy these velocities. We're just going to set them all, we could have used a line tool there. That would have been nice, but I don't care about it that much. So we've got those. And notice the window is set to only show you the velocities for the notes that you currently have selected. That's kind of a handy feature to keep you from accidentally messing with the velocities on notes that you're not trying to edit. It does mean, however, that you have to remember to select the note you want to do. So now if we go here, I believe process groove quantize is what we're interested in. Now, I already recorded this part to a grid. We used step record. So everything is perfectly lined up. So the time part of this, we don't care at all about. Duration, we don't really care about at all either, because these are all we already took care of that by doing step record. If you had manually played the part in and recorded it that way, you might care more about those things. You might want to pre-quantize before you do that. But let's go to these Cakewalk DNA grooves here. And I'm going to go, you know what? Let's go ahead and do the time and velocity just so you can see what it's going to do. Now, if I audition this, it's going to play, but it's not going to play my whole selection. It's only going to play a snippet. Hear how that's swung it. Let's take this tempo down a little bit. That's interesting. What are you doing, Cakewalk? All right, numlock was turned off. That's my favorite thing to have happen ever. Okay, so we got these two clips here. Let's get back into it over here. And before we go on, let's change this to let's go to ride cymbal there. So we got that. Now we're a little slower. Go back, process, groove, quantize again. That pulls our window up. Do our DNA grooves. Let's preview this shuffle feel A and see what that sounds like. Notice how that had a pretty heavy effect on the velocities there, and it also shuffled the shuffled the notes to be on a shuffle grid. It moved the notes to be on a shuffle grid as opposed to a straight grid. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and select straight feel B. So we're just going to do straight feel B. I don't care about the time at all. I'm going to set the velocity to about 74, 75. I feel like it's a little heavy-handed when you go 100%. And now when I said OK to that, notice how it applied that effect and got us a nice groove-based set of velocities. This is a real easy way, if you don't want to have to manually program all of your velocities, to just be able to edit that and get a nice groove. So that is how the groove quantize works. You can use it to do more stuff than that. You can define grooves, you can do a little more intricate stuff, but the basic gist of it is you select what you want to select, and you can use it to adjust the velocities, the attacks where the notes hit, and how long the notes hold. Really super useful if you were, say, trying to create a groove with not precisely quantized sort of set of notes. You could take and, for example, apply that to the drum and the bass groove, and you could use that to lock those two virtual players in so that they're just always hitting dead on the same place, but they're not locked into the straight grid. They can be locked into a grid to where they're pushing ahead or pulling back, however you want to set it. Play around with those grooves. You can get a lot of work done with those. So now the next thing we want to talk about, Shale had asked about splitting, because when you have this, if I export this out to audio, all the drum tracks are going to be on a stereo pair, or it's split mono. It'll either be 2 mono tracks or 1 stereo track. The point is, all the drums are going to be on one thing, and we don't want all the drums to be on one thing. On one track. We don't want them all married to each other. So what I'm going to do here, there are a couple ways to go about this. You can either copy parts, create new tracks, and then paste, or you can do what I feel is a little faster, which is to duplicate, and then after you've duplicated the track, then you just delete whatever you don't need. First things first here. Where's my glue? Let's select these. If I right click, can I bounce to clips? There we go, perfect. So that'll save me a little time in a few minutes, you'll see. So we go here, we right click our track. We're just going to duplicate it and selected tracks. Just that. We want to duplicate everything for now. Let's say we had put some reverb on there, or if we had put any other effect, we would want to go ahead and duplicate it. Notice repetitions. We're actually going to do 3 repetitions, and that will give us 4 tracks, and you'll see why we do that in just a second. Unless it locks up and decides it doesn't like me and wants to embarrass me on the internet. That could also happen. All right, so we duplicated the track. It seems to have loaded the synth 4 times, and it didn't duplicate that. I thought I told it to. That is not a huge issue, though. It's not a big deal. You're just going to take your part, copy it, and then we've duplicated the tracks. It's already got the correct synths on it. Everything is in the right places. So we've got now our track 4 times. Now we're going to name this one. So all I did there was I just copied my clips, pasted it down because somehow I missed that in the duplication process. I'll go back and look at the video later and see what stupid thing I did. But this track is going to be kick. Then I'm going to do snare. I'm going to do toms, and then I'm going to do cymbals. Lots of different ways to split things. This is just how I like to do them. Okay, so I'm going to unrecord, enable everything here. We don't need that. And I'm going to look at that. And notice I'm just looking at the kick track right now. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight everything that isn't the kick drum. Now let me see if select none, all by audio by time. I was hoping Cakewalk had added this. There's the feature that you see in graphic editing programs all the time, which is to select inverse. So you can highlight something and then tell it, hey, do the opposite. And I was hoping they might have that, but it doesn't matter. So we know that that's my kick drum. What I want to do is take everything that isn't the kick drum and delete it. So now I'm going to click over here and look at the snare drum. I'm going to highlight everything that isn't the snare drum, and I'm going to delete it. Now I'm going to click on my toms track here, and this will be easy because it's everything except those notes right there. Usually you got to be a little more careful when you do your toms because they're surrounded by cymbals. So we get those, we get these, that one, and that guy. I did not do that as elegantly as I could have, but you know, we get the point across. Actually, are those? I may have done it wrong. Solo that. Yeah, those are right. Okay. But why is this note there? We'll deal with that in a second. Okay, cymbals. Kick and snare need to go. The couple of tom hits we had here, those need to go. And we're left with nothing but cymbals. So now if we come up here and let's say if I look at my kick track, I've just got kick. If I click that there, that fixes it, yeah. If you click on the name, it just adds it and keeps the other track selected. So if we click on that, we got kick. Click here, you see my snare drums. My tom track now only has the toms. My cymbal track only has the cymbals. Let me solo this right around that. Okay, we come back to the tom track here, because I don't want that tom to be that note. I want that tom to be that note. You don't hear it because I forgot to unsolo the other track. I'm not sure how that note got moved. Did anybody see where that happened? That was weird. Okay, they're panned correctly again. Okay, so now we look at this and we have a kick track, snare track, tom track, cymbal track, and now they can all be processed just like you would if you were using a real kit. We can go to the kick drum. Let's pull up the mixing lens. So now if we look at our mixer, we've got kick, snare, tom, cymbals, then rename this to bass. If you care about that sort of thing, you can load track icons. Can go to percussion. You can go to drums. It really just, kick drum. I've never cared that much about having these sort of things, but you know, if you wanted to, you can always do this. Just going to do crash symbol. There we go. So we'll save. Now that lets us know which one's which. And if we watch, now we can mix the kit. We can add reverb. We can add effects to those individual drum groups. If we wanted to mix them separately and then also mix them out as a group, we could create a bus. I did that wrong. We could come over here, insert stereo bus. We can call it drums. And then what we would do is over here, instead of sending these to master, we would send them to drums. And now when we mix these, we can adjust the whole kit volume using our drum bus. If there's an effect that we want to apply to the whole kit, we can apply it here and it will get applied to the entire kit using sends or inline effects. Either way, inserts, either way you want to do that. But let's take a look at our kit here. Let's set that as the loop points. So now we've got our kick there. I need to turn myself up a little here. Those toms are hot. I'm going to just take a wild stab since I've got these so varied. I'm going to take a guess that my headphones are deceiving me a little bit, but that's all right. We don't care about that right now. We're not talking about mixing drums today. We're just talking about how to separate these out and get something useful. And you can clearly see how if we wanted to, we could pan these things. We probably don't want to do that, but we can get all of that done here now just as though we had worked with a real kit. The big difference is you won't have any bleed. So that actually can be disadvantageous at times. Sometimes you want bleed, especially in your overhead mics. On the other hand, a lot engineers spend a lot of time getting rid of bleed and trying to fight against it. So you've got almost an ideal situation. Also, if you wanted to, for example, if you really love your cymbals from one kit that you've got, we can now take this and we can use a whole other drum kit here. If you wanted to use the kick and snare from two separate kits, now that they're on their own tracks, you can just take those and assign them to whatever drum synth you want. So that's a super handy thing to be able to do. Let's go back to our track view here. I am not going to do that, and something else to remember here is that you would want to do this late in the game after you're done programming, because now what happens if I want to program another drum groove? I've got to work with these 4 separate tracks instead of being able to work on it with one nice, easy to work with track. So it's generally best not to do this at the very beginning like I did it, where I've only got 8 bars of drums programmed. But again, this is just an example, so it's not a big deal. Let's go ahead and come back here. What I want to do now, I super don't need that open. I'm going to come here and go to the bass and record enable, and we're just going to record some quarter note bass, I think, maybe 8th note bass. Let's do Alt 3. I got to remember that Alt 3 is the one I need here. So we're on bass. Bass is record enabled, so I'm going to hit step record, and I'm going to go to 8th notes. Let's do a nice simple chord progression. We'll just do, ooh, that's hot. Maybe before we do that, we're going to turn this bass track down a little. Okay, where is that in line with, that's better. Okay, so let's come back here again. We'll do Alt 3, and we'll do our step record, and we're on our bass track, and we've got eighth notes. Oh, destination track. I should pay attention to that. Man, I just had flashbacks to ages ago when I used to use Cakewalk. I can't tell you how many times I've messed that up. The number of times I've ended up entering stuff into the wrong track. Pay attention when you load the step sequencer or the step record. The destination track is the currently selected track because it won't always be. Follow step size for the duration. You can actually change that. You can change it to be random. Delete on backstep, yes. Beat advance. Insert is beat backwards. Okay, step backwards is okay. So let's just say we're gonna do a nice easy circle progression here. We'll just do come back here. Come back. Come back. Come back. That loop is getting in my way. Something I've noticed every DAW does is they try to do too many things in that little region. Cakewalk is apparently no exception. Okay, so okay, so the Cakewalk or the step sequence is still open, which is why this is happening, even though you don't see the window. Stay on D. Next measure will. We'll go to F. Okay, now I picked a not very wonderful sounding bass on purpose. Let's listen to that and let's see our velocities again. Let's just trash those real quick. Do we have a draw line? Excellent. There we go. So now we have super all the same velocities. Okay, so that's awful. We go process, group quantize. We're going to set our resolution to eighth notes. I needed to do that after I selected that. Straight field beat. Stop changing back. I don't care about time or duration. I just want velocity. And we're going to set it to about there. We go, okay. And notice now we have something a little more sensible. You can see that we're high, low, middle, low, and we've got the velocities moving up and down. And these grooves are bad. They don't go together all that well, but that's all right. We're just demonstrating a concept. Now, let's go real quick. One last thing we can do. This is not going to be super effective here, but let's go to the mix. And what I want to do is I'm going to put a compressor on the bass track. And I'm going to do insert audio effects. And we want the Sonitis compressor. And let's pull this guy in. And what we want to look at, where is my input bypass? This should have limiter on. Maybe this one doesn't do it. It looks like we're going to be doing that next time, perhaps. So we got threshold, gain. What I would like to do is pipe the input from the kick drum, but apparently this doesn't do it the way that I thought it would do. So we're going to use a different compressor for that. All right, well, we got the gist of this done. We can do a basic sequence of drums, and then we saw how to split those out into other tracks and how to use the groove quantize on different instruments. Let me solo the bass real quick just so you can hear what a difference that made. Now let's take a look at that compressor. And now notice how what I've done is now I've chopped that down to where the volume of the bass is fairly steady sort of a thing. But you can hear the timbre change on those attacks, even though we've killed off a lot of the up and down in volume that we got from the velocities. So that's another way to process your bass. Next time we're going to look at doing some other things with it. So anyway, that's all we're going to do for today. We'll be back doing some more Cakewalk stuff next week. I am Ailsean from the Grammar Club, and I will see you later.